So now we're drilling down to the company level. And as you can see here, we are now estimating the required return on equity of a company. And of course, you might be thinking immediately capital asset pricing model. And sure, that's here. But as you can see, there are actually pretty much 6 ways of estimating the required return on equity that you should be aware of in this reading. And the good news, again, low-hanging fruit. Dividend discount model, well, what could I do with it? I could rearrange it to imply the cost of equity as the dividend yield. Now remember, that dividend yield is D1 over P0, so a kind of leading dividend yield. And then we are simply adding the expected growth in the dividend. And that's simply the Gordon growth model rearranged. So no chance of forgetting this formula here. Remember, in part 1, we also subtracted the risk-free rate, and that gave us the equity risk premium for the market. Here we're looking at it at the company level. Then I've got the bond yield plus risk premium, quite a mouthful of a name. So it's bond yield plus risk premium. They do abbreviate it sometimes like this, BYPRP, okay? And so it just means take the cost of debt for the company and add a risk premium to account for the fact that equity is riskier than debt. And also this could be referred to as the build-up method. Anytime you start with a sort of benchmark rate and you add premium to that without using betas, it is called the build-up method. Now, what is the logic here? Well, first of all, let's focus on the cost of debt. We already saw in part 1 that the ideal scenario is that the company has publicly traded debt, and we use its market price to imply the cost of debt as the yield to maturity of publicly traded debt. So let's say we somehow arrive at the cost of debt, all right? And then we need to say, hey, equity is riskier than debt, because if the company goes belly up, the shareholder will get paid at the back of the queue, typically being left with nothing at all. So I need to add a risk premium, all right? But how do I arrive at this risk premium? And this is really the weakness of this model. It isn't an objective risk premium. It's more like you are an appraiser who's been doing this for 20 years, and based on your experience, based on your gut feel and intuition, you're adding a certain risk premium on top of the cost of that. So there is a little bit of a shaky foundation here in terms of the rigor of the method, but nevertheless, you can see we studied because it's a quick and dirty and simple method. CAPM, or capital asset pricing model, needs absolutely no introduction. It's a top 10 formula for the level 1 exam. So I don't need to even cover it, but you've got the risk-free rate plus the systematic risk of the stock, so the exposure to the market, times the equity risk premium. And remember, equity risk premium is actually the return of the market in excess of the risk-free rate. And that was a focal point of part 1 of this video, where we looked at the historical backward-looking or the forward-looking methods of estimating ERP, for example, by using the Greenhout-Kroner macroeconomic model. And then the next thing that the examiner wants you to know is how we actually estimate the beta. So they might say, well, where's that beta coming from? Well, the buzzword is the market model. So the market model is a simple linear regression that is used to estimate the beta of the stock. Think of beta as the slope of that linear regression line. The dependent variable, so the Y variable, is the excess return of the stock over the risk-free rate. So the stock here is I, and we are looking at the excess return of stock I over the risk-free rate. The independent variable is the excess return of the market over the risk-free rate. And then you can see that the 3 outputs from the simple linear regression will be the intercept, the error term, but most importantly for our purposes, the slope, which then will be interpreted as the beta of the stock. Then I've got Fama-French, Eugene Fama and Kenneth French, the blokes from the 90s who expanded onto the single factor CAPM. And again, I'm not teaching you anything new here. You've seen it all before. So look, here, this is your CAPM. And then what Fama and French did is they brought in two additional factors. The first factor is SMB, which stands for small minus big, or you can think of this as the size factor. So small caps should do better than large caps because they are, I guess, more sensitive to the business cycle and riskier. And then HML stands for high minus low, or high B over P ratio, which is book value of equity over price of equity. So basically value factor. Yeah, HML is a value factor. And what we are saying here is that value stocks should do better than growth stocks, because value stocks could be undervalued and growth stocks could be overvalued. And then if that's not enough, Farmer and French then expanded the model into a 5-component model, so added 2 more factors. Now, you might not have seen these factors before, so just learn them now. RMW, robust minus weak. This is a profitability factor. So robust means that I've got high profitability, which is stable, and weak means that I've got low and stable profitability. Of course, profitability can be measured as ROE, ROA, net profit margin, operating margin, all those good things. And then CMA stands for conservative minus aggressive. The words conservative and aggressive refer to your investment style. So are you a careful, slow growth, meticulous investor? When I say investor, property, plant, equipment, buying other businesses. Or are you a bit of an empire builder, a bit of a pet project manager? So if you're a careful builder, you're conservative. And if you're an empire builder, you're aggressive. So that is your style factor. And so that's obviously one thing they can ask you. Okay, explain the factors. The other thing they could ask me is to interpret the exposures or the sensitivities, the betas, basically. So let's interpret all the betas. Obviously, the beta in front of the ERP is simply the good old systematic exposure to the market. So beta of 1 means that we are in line with the market risk. Beta above 1 means we are cyclical. The beta in front of the SMB, or the size factor, well, if you've got a positive beta there, it means that you've got a small company tilt. Yeah, so the company we're looking at here is smaller than average. Then the sensitivity in front of the value factor indicates, obviously, if that is positive, indicates that you have value tilt. So the company may have low multiples. Yeah, it's an undervalued stock. Then a positive beta in front of the RMW factor would indicate that I've got a profitability tilt. So I'm one of those high profitability, stable profitability type of companies. And then a positive beta in front of CMA means that I'm a careful investor, conservative builder of long-term wealth, rather than someone who is going for those very high-risk, aggressive investment projects.